Hi guys, it's Mary. We're going to be talking about meltdowns and how they are a form of communication. So, let's start with a typical situation, which is the main reason why this even came to mind as a topic for me, which is the video that everyone's probably seen of some kid having a tantrum in the middle of a grocery store and some stranger walking by and getting really upset, and the parent being super stressed out because the stranger is, yelling at them about their kid and about how their kid's a terrible human and why, you should be a better parent because a 5-year-old shouldn't be having a tantrum in the grocery store. And unfortunately, this situation has happened probably much more than we've seen, and much more than I would like to hope it has. And the major problem with that is most of the time, that tantrum isn't a tantrum at all. It's a meltdown. And as much as those words have similar meaning to the neurotypical population, for us, it's very distinct. It's pretty common for a 2-year-old to have a tantrum of any 2-year-old or anyone at that developmental level, because they want attention or they want a tangible or they want to get away from doing something. Those are all tantrums. That's that's just being annoying at some point, which is acceptable and everyone's going to do at some point in their life, and it's reasonable to be a little upset about that, but you're not going to change that. Any kid and even some adults get that, whether they want to get out of work, get out of homework as a teenager. It happens, people have tantrums. But more than likely, especially with a population like those with autism and those who have deficits in their communication, it's much more likely to be a meltdown. And as we just talked about stimming and self-regulation, I like to think of stimming of meltdowns as almost like the ultimate stim. Most stims are for comfort and to help you regulate while you're continuing to do other tasks, because it helps to make sure that you're able to continue to do those other tasks. But when that ability to regulate is taken away, and when you're not able to, and you get so dysregulated that you can't continue those tasks, that's when meltdowns occur, because your needs and your body are so out of sync that anyone trying to communicate or do anything with you beyond getting those needs met that are happening at that moment that you need to get to a better place, everything else is just gone. Whether that's for any reason, because you got hurt and you can't tell someone, whether it's just you're frustrated with yourself and it builds too much and your internal stress gets too high that you can't regulate. There are so many reasons for meltdowns. Now let's get away from just ASD and realize that meltdowns do happen in the neurotypical population as well. Just because, you aren't a baby anymore, you don't stop having meltdowns. And just because you're not a kid, you don't stop having meltdowns. Whether that be, you're a kid in a classroom or in the store and it gets to be too much. Or a wonderful example we've been talking about is road rage, which is a great example of something that can turn into a meltdown. And you all probably know the physical signs that you get. Your face gets red, sometimes there's tears, you start sweating. It's that fight or flight response that you get. It gets super intense, super fast, because you can't communicate. Whether it's, someone almost ran into you when you were trying to switch lanes, or they were trying to switch lanes, or someone ran a red light and almost hit you. You can't communicate with that person in another car, and you start getting upset and dysregulated, and that can cause a meltdown for you. Or when your computer breaks down, or you're having technical problems with something. All of those situations can lead to meltdowns in anyone. And that's regardless of your ability to communicate. But with a population that struggles with communication, whether that be just a lesser understanding, but still with verbal communication, or purely limited by what they can actually communicate, whether it's by device or sign language, and their knowledge of the tool as well as the options on that are limited, it can make communication even more difficult. So a situation that Jen and I were just talking about was someone had gotten hurt. I've been around a lot of people that use devices like Proloquo on their iPads or PEX books, any form of communication. I know very few of them that have any form of system to tell anyone that they are not feeling well, whether that be their stomach hurts, or they stubbed their toe, or they have a broken arm because they fell off of their bike riding down a giant hill. I don't know the situation they could end up in, because they're people just like anyone else. Anything that could happen to a neurotypical can happen to a person with autism, or with any developmental disability, or any disability at all, pretty much. I mean, there's restrictions within that, obviously, and we like to think that they're gonna be safe because they're with people more of the time, but, you know, we know that people with autism are much more susceptible to digestive problems, so maybe they get checked more regularly. But what if it's just a regular stomach ache? I mean, most people don't work their best when their stomach hurts. I can assure you that affects just about everyone. And maybe that on top of some stress, on top of someone yelling at them because they didn't do something exactly perfectly because they were stressed and their stomach hurt. All of this builds and builds and builds, and maybe they usually use a tactile fidget and then they started flapping, and that's no longer working because now it's built too high. And they're not going to be able to function much longer, and then something else happens. Whatever it be. Maybe they, hit the side of their hand on a table walking by it. We all know how much that can hurt. And something that small can trigger a meltdown. Just like in any other person, it can be something small that triggers it. But that just, because they don't have a way or don't have the form of communication to express what is wrong or how to fix it or what they need in that situation, these meltdowns don't just go away. It's not like a tantrum where I want a cookie and you don't give me a cookie, so I'm gonna cry, and then you give me a cookie and then I'm okay. Because that's a tantrum. Let's face it. I wanted a cookie, I got a cookie, I'm fine. But here, telling me I can have something I want, like, yay, I'm glad I get something I want, but that's not going to stop the fact that I'm not regulating. So it's going to be different for different people. For me, I know that when I'm in a meltdown, I will approach the people that I need. Not everyone has that skill, and I know that I'm very careful to address it with people that I spend a lot of time around, that if I get to that place, if I'm getting close, I will try to tell them, but I will isolate myself because it's easiest and best for me to self-regulate when I'm alone. Whether that be stepping outside if I'm in a public place, going into a bathroom and locking the door, going somewhere where I can have my own space, because that gives me the chance to calm and regulate, take care of any self-stimulatory needs, take care of any vocalizing and processing I need to do, and I will approach whoever I need, whether it's someone yelled at me and that was the trigger, so I need to tell them why, because part of me processing is addressing what occurred prior, but for every person that's going to be different. And a lot of these situations is going to come down to communicating with your friend, loved one, whoever it is that you're watching these because you're probably watching these for someone that you know, whether that be yourself, your child, someone you're a caregiver for, someone that you work with professionally. do your best to communicate with them about their needs in that situation. And that's going to be harder with some people than others. By reaching out to more people, you might get a better view of what options there are in that situation. And it really is just about giving them the chance to communicate their needs and to understand that that's what they're trying to do. Whether that results in problem behaviors because, you know, head hurts and they can't tell you, so they pull your hair because it's close to your head, and that's the best way they have to communicate that. Knowing that they're trying to communicate with you all of the time, but especially in that meltdown, they're just trying to communicate and trying to get their needs met as much as anyone would be in that situation. So that's all for right now. Feel free to ask any questions or put any comments in the box. We'd love some likes, and feel free to have your friends come and subscribe as well. If you haven't subscribed, come join us. We have a few more videos planned, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye!